My name is Palmer McKay. I am interviewing Vietnam veteran Guy Maddox, who served in the Navy and was in Vietnam from 1966 to 1967. Mr. Maddox, this interview will have 4 sections: your life before service, basic training, your time in Vietnam, and your life after service. Let's get started with your background. Where did you grow up, and what was your area known for?
Southern Indiana, a little town called Marengo. It's known for a cave that's there. And that's not too far from Louisville, Kentucky.
Can you tell me about your family growing up?
Well, I had a farm that my dad bought, almost 200 acres. And I lived 5 miles from town, so I had to ride a school bus for a long time. And it was pretty cold in the winter, but it was a lot of work involved.
Did you have any siblings?
Had an older sister and older brother, and both have since passed. One was, my brother's 6 years older, and my sister was 8 years older.
Would you describe your dad's job as blue collar or white collar or something else?
Blue collar. He was a home delivery bread truck.
Do you have any memories of your father or other men around you telling war stories from World War II?
No, my dad didn't pass a physical. He was drafted, but when he went for physical, he had flat feet, so they wouldn't take him. And I had an uncle that was in the Navy, but he didn't talk about it.
Did you have a favorite World War II movie growing up?
Not particularly. I didn't watch a lot of war movies.
A lot of Vietnam veteran memoirs mention John Wayne as an influence on their expectations of war. Do you remember John Wayne that way?
I think Green Beret is his movie. I saw that when I was in service before we went to Vietnam. So I like more Good Morning Vietnam, that style, more lighthearted.
Now, I'd like to move on to the start of your service and basic training.
Okay.
Would you describe yourself as volunteering, being commissioned, or drafted?
A little both. I was aged to be drafted. Several of my friends had already been drafted, and I didn't want to march, I didn't think, so went in the Navy, and that got me started.
What were the main reasons you volunteered? I know you mentioned that you didn't want to march in the Army. Were there any other reasons?
The environment I grew up in, the work environment, was pretty limited. There's just factories, and most of them were minimum wage. No opportunity to advance. A lot of the people had spent their whole life working and never did have enough to do anything. And this was kind of a breakaway. I could get out and see more and have more opportunities.
Why the Navy versus the Marines or the Air Force?
I had a brother's in the Navy, so he come home with a tattoo, and I never got a tattoo when I was in the service, but I guess that's the reason. He had some tales he would tell about going to different, like Spain and Italy and things like that.
Did you plan to use the GI Bill to go to college?
I didn't plan on it. I didn't even know I had a GI Bill, and that was just something I found out later on. But it did come in awfully handy because I couldn't afford to pay for college myself, and it paid tuition and books, things like that.
How would you describe your boot camp experience?
Cold. I was in Great Lakes, Illinois, January, so I went in, and we had to shovel snow, keep the sidewalks clean, and there wasn't a soul out there. It was all night. They had to keep them clean. One of the guys got so cold he crawled in the dumpster and slept. So,
wow. What was Navy boot camp like?
It was laid out as far as people had never had any formal disciplinary background or anything like that. Being from a small school, you pretty much knew everybody, and here you're thrown in with people that you didn't know, and they had their own personalities, and everything was different. And it was a growing experience.
How difficult was the experience of boot camp for you? I know you said it was cold.
I was in the old World War II barracks. They hadn't completed, they had brand new barracks that they hadn't finished quite yet. And so they put us temporarily into these. No hot water. You still had to take a shower, and very little heat in them. So we would soap up, get wet, run through, and dry off. One guy didn't do it, and they gave him a brush bath. They took bristle brushes they used to clean the floor. They scrubbed him with that. So he took a shower every day after that.
Wow. Did anyone around you struggle with boot camp?
Yes, they did. There was actually a suicide when I was in training, basic training. And there was some that wanted to fake being bedwetters. That was one of the reasons they could discharge you, and fake different things that was wrong.
What happened with the individual who committed suicide?
Well, there was not anything you could do. He send him home. I don't know what the paperwork would have been on something like that.
What prompted him to commit suicide?
It's stressful being away from home. Some of these guys depended on their mother to look out for them and babysit them and all this, take care of things. And there's no contact. You didn't. I think we was allowed to use a payphone after a couple of weeks, but and you didn't get mail for a while, so it was pretty isolated. You had to depend on yourself and the ones around you. Yeah.
Between the time you entered the service and when you deployed in 1966, what did you do and where were you stationed?
As soon as I got out of basic training, I went back to Great Lakes again for the corpsman school, and that was about a 3-month course we went through, and we experimented on each other, like drawing blood. We took turns doing things like that. There was a big naval hospital there that we go in and watch them some. So then once we graduated from that, the first assignment was in Millington, Tennessee, outside of Memphis.
By 1966, did you expect to go to Vietnam?
Well, when I was in Millington in '64, they showed us a video of a column of Marines going down this dirt road, and they was ambushed, and several of them was shot, and they was showing the medics or corpsmen jumping in trying to take care of them and everything. And at the end of the movie, they asked for volunteers, and I don't recall anybody volunteering to go at that point. It was getting pretty built up, pulling a lot of people to Vietnam. So.
What, if anything, did you know about the country of Vietnam before you deployed?
Only that they had a war going on there. Didn't know a whole lot about it. I had a friend that went in before I did. He was in the Army, and he sent some pictures back of some Viet Cong that they shot. So, you know, he'd tell me stories about his experience.
What did you know about the Vietnam War?
Very contested. Some people was going to Canada to get out of the draft, and the medical staff that I was assigned to had doctors that was drafted as well. So they wasn't anxious to go to Vietnam either.
I'd like to move on to your time in Vietnam.
Okay.
Did anything stick out to you about your flight to Vietnam?
It was a long one. Had a lot of breakdowns. It was, I think, about 50 or 60 of us, all corpsmen. It went through Camp Lejeune, and we got out to California, broke down. We spent a day there, and then they got cleared to go take off again. Landed in Washington State, checked it out again, got to Fairbanks, Alaska, and this is back before you could pull up to the terminal. It was all snow and ice on the terminal on the airport. So we had a little bit of time to go in there. And tried again, landed in Tokyo, and spent 2 days in Tokyo while they checked out the plane again. And we finally got to Da Nang about a day later.
And was it a military aircraft or a
No,
civilian?
it's civilian.
What month did you arrive in 1966?
November.
Could you describe your first 24 to 48 hours in country?
We arrived in Da Nang, and there was problem getting an aircraft to take us to Chu Lai. So we had to stay camped out there on the hangar, and that's where they pulled out their jets to test them before they took off, and they would rev up the motors, and it was very loud. And I'm sure some of my hearing was lost there. But then after a couple of days, they flew us in a military plane to Chu Lai.
What did you expect when you arrived based on TV or stories you had heard?
Didn't know what to expect. They had issued our rifles at the time, but didn't give us any ammunition. There was windows at the top of the plane, but you couldn't see out. So when we landed, he didn't know what she was going to have to run and duck for cover, or what she was going to have to do. But it was an experience.
Would you describe yourself as being in combat, in the rear, or something else?
Both. Chu Lai was a pretty big operation. When we first got there, was very little there. They hadn't built any of the huts or anything yet. We had to sleep in a tent, and it was during monsoon, so you had to stick the flap of the tent underneath your cot to keep it from blowing up, or otherwise you get rain blowing in on you. But they soon had that built, and then the CBs come in and built a huge warehouse for medical supplies. And being monsoon, it was mud almost to your knees. You step down in there, trying to get down there to it. So it was a lot of things going on. We was up above the airstrip where the military jets took off. F-5s, I think it was then, I'm not sure.
What kind of work did you do?
It was medical supply. We got the orders in. They had two big doors that the trucks could actually pull inside of it and load it up. And then they'd take them out into the field and resupply the corpsmen and the field hospitals if they had those set up.
How much time did you spend treating injured Marines, and how much time did you spend winning the hearts and minds through treating Vietnamese civilians?
As far as being with the Marines, going on field maneuvers and things like that, not so much. You remember the MASH shows that they used to have on TV? They had a forward unit that was kind of like that, and there was two of us that went out when it first set up, and we took these metal boxes that was about 3 foot by 2 foot by a foot, 8 inches, something like that deep. Had about 24 of those, and we flew out by a twin rotor helicopter and had to unload them. He wouldn't land on the site because it was a hot zone, and had to quickly unload that, and then once he took off and carried over and establish a site for that. And the corpsmen would come in from the field. If most of them wouldn't carry the Unit 1, that's a medical bag. They just kept the wrappings and everything that they wrapped the wounds with inside their vest. And because one thing that they would look for was officers that had their insignia and a medical bag. That was the first 2 targets they wanted to take out. So they didn't use the medical bag very much. And
how much time did you spend back on base versus out in the field?
Probably half and half. A lot of that was volunteer, as far as going out on swift boats and going out in the field. You know, I was there, I wanted to see what was going on. I was dumb. I just volunteered. And so I did go out to a place called Duck Pho, which is north of Chu Lai, and also Quang Nai. And I spent most of my time at Quang Nai. I opened it and I shut it down. The base got almost overrun, and the Army sent the first air cav to take over from there.
Did you spend much time on a boat, or were you mostly on foot?
Spent a little bit of time on swift boats. They operated, the ones I was on, along the coastline. They didn't go up the rivers. And during the day, you go out for a day and night, and we would, at nighttime, go along the coastline and shoot into the caves that was along that area, and shoot mortars in and things like that. And then the next day, then we would go into a village and do some of the pacification work, and ask for sick people if there was anybody sick that needed attention. One time we pulled in, there was an old guy in a round wicker basket type fish boat. He just paddled it and kept trying to make him understand that I was a doctor, or that's what they called the corpsman. And so anyway, he was gone for a while, and here comes about half hour later a corpsman in a canoe, and he said, "They told me that you needed assistance." I said, "No." I said, "We're trying to get some of the people, local people, that need help." So he went back again. They sent out about 7 or 8. Most of them had wounds that was beyond what I could treat. I do the best I could with the dressings and give them ointments to take and keep. And most of them needed to go to the hospital. But that's pretty much all you could do. It was just simple things. We couldn't, we could sew somebody up if it needed it, but most of them had been sick for a while.
Were there any injuries that were really common?
Most of it's on their feet. They would get out in rice paddies, without shoes and all that. And if there's a sharp rock or something in the water, they would see it and cut their feet. And of course, it's that mud. It would be infected, and a lot of amputations from people hurting their feet.
Did you ever treat anyone that maybe stepped on a landmine or was burned by napalm?
No, I wasn't. I'm glad I wasn't put to that test. That is something that would be difficult.
How would you describe the Americans you served with in terms of economic background, race, or religion?
It covers the whole spectrum. Some had been to college and been drafted. Others was kind of like myself, that they knew they was going to be drafted and they decided to enlist instead. One person I was stationed with was from Louisiana. And you could tell he's a Cajun because you couldn't understand what he was talking about. So there's just about, and if you got mail and they didn't, they'd want to read your mail because they didn't get letters from home.
I know you said it was a very broad spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever serve with any Black or Hispanic service members?
Oh, yes. One guy was from Hawaii, and he was native Hawaiian. And there was also some South Korean, I guess they're Army or Marines. I think there's Marines. And they would come up to him and start speaking to him in South Korean, and that'd make him upset. But we had everybody.
Do you remember any American women in the war zone?
No. I've since heard that there was nurses there, but I didn't run into any.
Did you or anyone you served with change in terms of faith in the war zone?
Relied on it a lot. I had, matter of fact, some of my friends come up to me and wanted to know how I could keep even and not get depressed. Because you got to remember, this is back when at home all of the protests was going on and rioting and everything. And some of the guys who live in Michigan, where Detroit was having a lot of riots, and their families was back home. And I told them, I said, well, I've got a little Bible that was issued to me, and I read it. I said, you're not going to be by yourself if you keep God with you.
What denomination were you raised in?
Church of Christ.
How did living in Vietnam and meeting Vietnamese people affect you?
Well, Vietnam is a beautiful country in itself, if you take a war away from it, and the children are like children anywhere. When going through some of the villages, I had a camera with me, and I'd take pictures of kids playing, and of course their environment was a house on stilts, and pigs running around underneath the house, and chickens running around, and they just had to live with what they had. But they seemed like happy people, as far as they could be.
How closely did you work with ARVN forces?
Just a little bit. Like I said, this Duck Pho area was kind of an RV, not RV, a recreational center for them. And so I just briefly talked to them once in a while, but they didn't always use English. They kind of stuck to themselves. They didn't blend in with the Americans all that much. That's the way it seemed anyway.
You've already talked a little bit about Vietnamese children.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you remember about them?
You really can't. It's disheartening in a way. You can't trust them, when you're out in the field, because they could smile at you and have a hand grenade in their pocket. So it's difficult to deal with that.
Was that something that everyone was worried about, or something that people had seen happen?
Well, if you was in an area that wasn't secure, yes. Even if it was secure, you don't know. And women do the same thing.
Do you know anyone who saw that specifically taking place?
No, I just have it secondhand.
Do you have any distinct memories of Vietnamese women?
They all wore black silk pajamas and instead of taking a bath like we're used to, they would just take a little bit of soapy water, and then they take a wooden bucket and turn it upside down for the rinse off with, and that was their shower.
Did you ever witness prostitution in Vietnam?
No, I didn't witness it. I knew it was going on, and I know. Well, I won't get into that.
Did you learn any Vietnamese words or phrases during your tour?
Yeah. Boko dinky dow.
What does that mean?
Really dumb, or to that. Pretty much that's the way it was. And you could. All of them had stained teeth, and they have I don't know what it was called. It was like a coffee bean or something like that.
Beetle nuts?
Beetle nuts, yes. And they would chew them, and they would measure distance by how many chews it was to get to where they was going. And it wasn't very pretty when they grinned. So.
Did you experience any culture shock in Vietnam?
Yeah, a lot of it. It was a total different lifestyle. There were some of the buildings that had been occupied by French, I guess, and they were still there, and sometimes they would leave like a doll or something on the porch, and they said, don't touch anything, so it could be rigged. So, but their schools, had small schools, and I'd never seen any of the kids in school, so I don't know if they was still in use or not.
Did you get sick at all during your time in country?
Well, everybody does when you first get there. They put you on malaria pills, and you have to take them every day. And they have a bad reaction. So if you need to be close to the outhouse when you take them. But that's outside of that's all I had.
Were you ever injured during your time in Vietnam?
We filled our sandbags with what's there when we started putting up our tent, and I guess at one time they had dropped the chemicals on the area to cleanse it, take the foliage out and everything, and of course, when they get wet, if you sit against them, which I did, you get a possible chemical burn, and I did get that on the back of my legs.
And how was that treated?
Burn them. They have a plate that you hold, and then the doctor's got the other end. One's positive, one's negative. So when he touches your body with his part of it, that completes the circuit, and it makes it burn. The skin is pretty smelly. So.
Wow. What was the most interesting food you ate in Vietnam?
They have a lobster that's called a langosta. It's the same family. And so one of the guys went to the village and bought some from the village there, and we boiled them and had them. So it was different.
What American foods did you miss most while in Vietnam?
Everything. They did get hamburger shipped in, and we'd have cookouts once in a while, but most of the time it was just your basic powdered eggs or whatever, you know. It was easy to keep and all that, but steak is what most people, if they got a chance. We got an R&R after you've been in country for a while that you could take and go to another country. And so I went to Taiwan and Taipei and had a good steak.
Do you remember any distinct animals during your time in Vietnam?
About the only thing I saw was like pigs and dogs, and they ate both. So you didn't see a lot of dogs running free or anything.
Did you have any pets while you were there?
No.
Did you ever have any experiences with rats?
Yes, as a matter of fact. One of the guys ate sardines, little tins of sardines you can get before you went to bed one night. And I heard this screaming, and I thought we was being attacked. And everybody started grabbing their guns and ran out. And he had awoke to find a huge rat on his chest, smelling his breath. He'd ate those sardines. And so he hit with his hand and threw it over to the side and landed on another guy. Of course, he started screaming then.
Did you ever see Vietnamese civilians collecting or using American trash like Coca-Cola bottles or beer cans?
They used our dumps as their repurposed port. They would take anything and everything. They would take old tires that had been discarded from the military and make sandals out of them. They would take scrap metal and make improvised bombs with them. And matter of fact, they had a display set up of all the things that they would make to ambush you and everything when we first got down, and go through it and see how they put it together.
Who set up that display?
The Marines. They tried to orientate everybody what to look for when you went on patrol. Tripwires and things like that that could, of course, if you stepped on a mine, you can't outrun it.
Was this display like a warning to not leave trash out, or was it just to inform you that?
Inform you what can happen with it.
Did you personally encounter the Viet Cong?
Not alive. I've seen some that was shot.
Did you encounter Vietnamese prisoners of war?
I don't know if you call them prisoners of war or not, but when I was in the forward unit, they did fly some in by helicopter. I think it was probably 20 or so, and it was men and women, children that they picked up and was bringing them in for interrogation, and they needed help escorting them to where they was going to interrogate them, so I helped them go down to interrogation. But they had sandbags over their heads so they couldn't identify where they was at. And so that's the only contact I really had with them.
Do you know what the interrogation was like?
No, I don't. I wouldn't privy to that.
Do you remember seeing Agent Orange being sprayed?
Trying to think. I think I have seen it sprayed, and I've seen it after you go in, after it's been sprayed, the helicopter's landing whips it around again. So it's pretty heavy when you get out.
Were you concerned at the time about Agent Orange?
Didn't know what it was. I know it was a weed killer. Being on a farm, I knew that, you know, farmers use weed killer. But
what were some of the ways you coped with the war?
Like I said, I was religious. Also had a tape recorder that I could make tapes and mail home. And then my parents had one as well. And my family would get together and they'd make a tape, send it to me, and then I'd send it back. So we'd do it back and forth.
How did people around you cope with the war?
Fellow Marines and corpsmen drank a lot. They had what they call near beer or 3-2 beer. It wasn't very potent, but if you drank enough of it, you could get drunk. But they did drink quite a bit. Matter of fact, the guy that I was stationed with in Italy was on the border of being alcoholic, and he couldn't get the strong enough, so he drank cough medicine that had ETH with codeine in it, and he finally came down with the DTs, and they had to ship him home.
Was your faith strengthened by the war?
It was, and you pray, you know, not only for yourself, but those with you. I had an instance where three of us went swimming, and it was quite a ways out to the platform, and all three of us come down with cramps, and so had it not been, I think, for God being with us, one or all three of us might have drowned. So.
Do you remember humor or slang or jokes or pranks being part of life in Vietnam?
Oh, there's always pranks. It doesn't matter if you're in Vietnam or where you're in the military, they're going to pull them on you. But I can't think of on top of my head exactly anything, but they're always telling jokes. And it's usually about somebody that they didn't like, or one of the officers or something like that. So.
Were you aware of active duty military personnel who opposed the war?
I didn't associate with them, so I don't know. I'm sure there was. Anybody that's drafted, it's not going to change their attitude.
What was the most memorable friendship you had during your time in Vietnam?
I had one guy that was friends with from Oklahoma, and matter of fact, we was assigned to the forward unit in Quang Nai, and he was in the same tent when we got ambushed, and the mortars was going off, and he was yelling at me, "You okay? You okay?" And I said, "Where you at?" I said, "I'm down here on the ground putting my pants on." So, what are you doing up there? But anyway, he and I spent a lot of time going on patrol together and things like that. I don't know what become of him, but you get out of the military and you go your own separate ways.
What was his name?
Gosh, I couldn't tell you now. I've forgotten his name. I just remember he was from Oklahoma, and he was almost bald-headed, but he was in his early 20s.
What was the most beautiful thing you saw in Vietnam?
We was on maneuvers one night, and there was full moon, and there was a lake that the moon was shining down on, and you had palm trees all the way around, and you had the reflection in the water of the moon and the trees and everything. And it's, if it wasn't wartime, it would have been really beautiful.
What was the worst thing you saw in Vietnam?
They had things they called mules. It's just you sit on it, it's got a steering wheel, motor, and then there was about 6 guys in body bags waiting for the helicopter. They just come in from the field. So you couldn't really mourn for them or anything. You just had to keep going on about your business and everything.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for sharing that with us. Can you tell me about your experiences with free fire zones?
Usually they have mountains that they call them mountains, or maybe 1,000 foot or less, and the VC usually tries to have the high ground, and they assign based on what they thought was the most important to take. And so once they take them, then they, where I was at, they had the side that was cleared the mine fields and all that, because they usually will throw out mines on the side, so they restrict them getting down and everything. But I went up to the top, and they have a platoon of Marines that stay up there, and anything on the other side was where they could shoot at anything that moved. And the rice paddies be down there, and water buffalo and things like that, and that's how they had their entertainment. They would shoot at the buffaloes. So I don't know if they killed any or not, but made more harassment than anything. But that was a considered enemy area. on anything on the other side.
Did you expect to survive the war?
When first got there, Vice, that one of the guys that had already been there for a while, said, just assume you're not going home. Then your life will be a lot easier. And I think that's probably good advice. You know, you don't know it when it's going to happen or if it'll happen. So.
I know you said that you recorded your voice and sent to your parents and back and forth. Who else did you write to or receive letters from when you were in Vietnam?
Well, I knew some girls that I dated, and one was going to college in Tennessee, and so she put my name and address, military address, on the bulletin board for people, sorority people that want to write veterans or people in the military. And so I used to get a few letters. Most of the time, though, it was just family and friends that was close.
Do you remember any American songs from your time in Vietnam?
Oh, yeah. Some of them they played over and over and over again. Matter of fact, some of the helicopter pilots would play them really loud when they fly over a fire zone. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was now, but they had one favorite, I think, at the. I think it was a da 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 da. Da. You remember how it's a lead in? Anyway, that was one of the songs. But the '60s era, you know, that's when you had all the good singers going on. So.
What was your most expensive or frequent purchase at the PX?
Well, the most expensive is I bought a Yashica 35. It was a Electro 35. It had the electric adjustments and, you know, lens expanding out and coming in and everything. And it was a pretty expensive camera for the time. It was one of the first out that was that model.
I know you said before that you kind of carried a camera with you. I assume that's the camera. Mm-hmm. Did you take tons of photos?
I didn't carry it all the time because I didn't want to lose it or get it damaged, but I did take it some. And I'd take black and white and color photos. Black and white actually did much better because of the heat and everything. It was better to take it in black and white. Use some of the kind that was for projectors, and I had them, but I don't know what become of them. You move so many times, you lose them. So.
Did you buy any Vietnamese souvenirs?
I did. There's a picture album that was lacquered, and it had a scene of Vietnam on the front. And I think I got a pair of those flops that was made out of truck tires or whatever. But they did have little shops set up around different places. You could actually buy Coke. I don't know where they got it from or what was in it, but it was.
That's the end of my service questions.
Okay.
Is there another story we haven't talked about from your time in Vietnam that you'd like to share?
Didn't mention anything about the July. We was all asleep one night, and all of a sudden there's pop flares flying from everywhere. They flying over, dropping them. They lit up the whole base. And VCs they got through the line and they didn't know where they was at. So we had a sergeant, Marine sergeant, that was in charge of the ammunition and everything. He had a key that kept that locked up. So he got us all up and give us hands full of ammunition in case we needed to defend ourselves. But that was a little bit eye-opening.
Let's talk about your post-service life. What relationship in your life was most changed by your service?
When I came home, I didn't realize it until I got married, but I had anger issues. And to me, it was just normal. I wasn't changed, but just about caused a divorce, I think, when we first got married. And, you know, somebody say something to you, you're ready to jump and start a fight. But my wife helped me get through that.
Did you know any anti-war veterans?
None that really would go to Canada or something like that to get away from it. From the area I grew up in, everybody's pretty patriotic, so they wouldn't.
You mentioned off camera that in your town one was either supportive of the war or kind of ostracized. Was that the case even after the Tet Offensive?
Pretty much so. A lot of the town had been, somebody in their family had either been killed there or else served there. So, you know, it took it personal.
And sorry to back up just a little bit to your anger issues. What would cause outbursts? Is there anything particular?
Sometimes people can be kind of crude. And I guess that would set me off.
After Vietnam, where did you go to college?
Indiana University in Jeffersonville. It's an extension school. And I completed my 4-year degree there in business. So.
And what years were you there?
See, I started in '68 and graduated in '72.
What did you study?
Business administration. I had a lot of accounting and economics.
Did you ever consider medicine after working as a corpsman?
As a matter of fact, I went to Indianapolis, Indiana, and talked to Eli Lilly. That's their corporate headquarters there. And I was interested in being a pharmaceutical sales rep. And they said, fine, just get your degree, no science required on it or anything. Said, when you graduate, come back and see us. So I got my degree, went back, and they said, oh, well, we no longer accept business degrees, you have to have a science degree. So that's the end of my pharmaceutical pursuits. So.
What did you expect on campus as a Vietnam veteran?
The professors was all very good to work with. They understood what veterans have been through, and there was the movement at the time where the hippies, you might say, or whatever, you know, they had the beads and all that. I didn't fit in, I didn't think, with it. I probably had a shorter haircut than most. No offense.
Were these hippies on your campus specifically?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And how did they treat you?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was make love, not have peace and
Make
all
love,
that.
not war?
Yeah, not war.
And is that what you expected? To be treated decently?
Well, sure. I mean, that's the way I would, whether I was a veteran or not,
What was it like being on campus during events like Kent State in nearby Ohio?
Really didn't pay any attention to it. At that time I was working, I had a child, and I had too much other things to worry about than what's going on across country.
Who since the war have you talked to about Vietnam?
Some of the members of a church attended had been there as well, and they had the same anger issues that I did, and didn't realize it. I'd known them for a few years, and you get to talking, and unless you are with somebody that has experienced the same thing, and they realize you're a veteran that did it, usually they don't talk together. But once you establish a common link there, then you're more open to talking about it.
Have you been to the Wall in D.C.?
I have.
What do you think of it?
Emotional. It's hard to walk through there.
Do you remember it being controversial?
Not when I was there. That was back in the 70s, I guess. But that's just one of those things that it should impress everybody that goes to it.
Have you been back to Vietnam?
No.
Would you like to go back?
No. I mean, it's a pretty country, but I really don't. I like to travel, but I wouldn't pick that as my first choice to go back.
Why not?
It brings back more I want to think about it.
This is my last question.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite book, poem, or movie about Vietnam?
I guess I like Good Morning Vietnam. It's more humor.
Okay. Mr. Maddox, thank you so much for talking with us and sharing your stories.
Oh, you're welcome.